Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am Commander-in-Chief Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So we're talking free agency targets for the Washington Commanders. Free agency is right around the corner. I want you to keep this in mind as you're viewing this video. Free agency is fluid, right? So any of these free agents that I'm talking about could already have been signed by their former team and agreed to terms and be off the board. Obviously, I don't know if these things will happen prior to free agency, but at the recording of this video, all of these players are still heading towards free agency. So with that said, we're talking about edge rusher, and it's one of the most important positions this offseason for the Commanders because they really don't have a starting caliber edge rusher on the roster as we speak. Only guys that are under contract currently are the rookies that we took last year. And so, you know, unless you feel 100% sure about KJ Henry being an edge rusher of the future, which nobody can say that at this point, then you need to draft an edge rusher or two, or you need to find an edge rusher or two, or a combination of both in free agency and the draft. But one way or the other, you need to address edge rusher, and I think you need to address edge rusher first in free agency and then clean up and tie up any loose ends in the draft. Hopefully, Washington's able to score 2 edge rushers in free agency, get 1 in the draft, and then you can go with those rookies from a season ago and have them fill out the back end of the roster at the defensive end position. So let's talk about the edge rushing position. I've had an extensive free agency video, so if you're looking for a breakdown of all of the guys that I think Washington could be potentially targeting, go watch that video. The link will be down in the description of this video, and it will be pinned in the comment section to take you to that video. But I'm going to give you the players that I think Washington should go after in free agency, some of my favorite guys. And then I'm going to also include some names to look out for. And really what I'm trying to say is these are guys that I think the team might be interested in. They're not my favorites. They're not guys I would potentially target, but they may target them for various reasons. And we'll get into those as we get to those names. So let's talk about the edge rushing targets for the Commanders in free agency. Remember, free agency starts on Wednesday, right? The tampering period starts 48 hours before, so Monday is when you'll start to hear news about guys agreeing to terms, but nothing is etched in stone. Nothing is official until the start of the new league year, which is Wednesday. So you'll hear guys agreeing to terms, but other teams can still swoop in. That player can still change his mind until his name is signed on the dotted line. Nothing is official, right? So just keep that in mind as well. So let's take a look at my free agent targets for the Washington Commanders and then others to consider, which that's what I think the team might be thinking about doing as well. So don't discount these guys, right? So the first free agent is Clowney at the edge rushing position. I've said this already. Washington is going to be in the market for a bunch of 1- and 2-year deals. They're looking for guys who are looking to prove themselves, who aren't looking to be tied down long term. They're looking for guys who can get them through to next year as they continue. You're going to build this thing piece by piece, brick by brick. And if you're going to do that, you're going to have some guys get you through the next year on a 1-year deal. And so there's going to be a bevy of those this year. Clowney is the king of the 1-year deal. And so why not? He's coming off of a career year, a year in which he played in all 17 games, started all 17 games. He's coming off of a career year where he had 9.5 sacks, which ties a career record for him. So he was extremely disruptive, one of the best players on that Ravens defense a season ago, especially up front, along with Justin McAbeke. I would love to add a Clowney. I know what I'm getting as long as he's healthy. You can't assure yourself that he's going to be healthy, but as long as he's healthy and he's out there, you know what you're getting in Clowney. I wouldn't mind adding him for 1 year. You're not going to fix everything that ails you right now in 1 year. Why not get a rental? Jadeveon Clowney fits that bill. I think he's going to Seattle to play for the Seahawks with his former defensive coordinator, now turned head coach, Mike McDonald. But we'll see what happens. I'm open to Jadeveon Clowney coming to Washington for a year. 1 year, $14 million contract. I'm all for it. Sign me up, right? So the next guy is Darrell Taylor, edge rusher from the Seattle Seahawks. He'll be 27 years old let me see. He'll be 27 in March. So this month he turns 27. Clowney is 31. He turned 31 in February. For those of you wondering what Jadeveon Clowney's age is, doesn't matter. They've shown us that they don't care about age really at this point as they're trying to build this roster. Zach Ertz is 33 years old. So I'm not too concerned with the age of these players as unless you're looking to sign them long term. I'm looking to sign Darrell Taylor long term. He's 27 in March. I think he's got tremendous upside. I've seen him get after the quarterback. I know what kind of a player he can be, and I'm interested in seeing him in an expanded role and what he can do here in Washington. So I wouldn't mind throwing a little bread at Darrell Taylor. And the good thing about it is he's not going to cost you as much as some of these other players are going to cost you out on the free agent market. We know edge rusher is a premium position. Usually you have to pay premium prices for edge rushers. You're not going to have to pay premium money for Darrell Taylor. He's going to be an underrated guy in the market. And so I think you can get him on a nice little, 3-year, $33 million deal, something like that, and feel good about the money that you're spending and hopefully have him exceed the contract that you're signing him to. But that's a guy that I think can help get you through. So if you're talking about lower level signings, Darrell Taylor fits that bill for me. If you're talking about a guy that's a rental that gets you through the next year where you try to find a permanent solution, Jadeveon Clowney is that guy. And then the player that I want the most, and I've been adamant about this throughout the process, is Jonathan Grenard, the Houston Texans edge rusher who's coming off of a career year where he had double-digit sacks. He stops the run. He's a very efficient football player. Is he as bendy? Is he as toolsy as I would like him to be? Does he offer you 3 or 4 different moves he can go to? No. He's a try-hard guy with energy that can win with speed and quickness and can do some things, but he's one of those guys that's just a glue guy on the defensive line. He's going to do his job. He's going to set a physical edge in the run game. He's going to be a presence. I like him. He's going to be 27 in May, so he's still relatively young. Kind of fits the timeline that I think they should be looking for in terms of trying to build this into a winner sooner rather than later. And so for me, Grenard, which I think the Texans would be foolish to let him leave, to be honest with you, but I'm hoping that he makes it to free agency and we have a crack at him, right? He, to me, is going to be the best of the young guys that is available in free agency because a lot of the younger guys have been tagged already. Josh Allen tagged already. Brian Burns tagged already. You're not going to let guys like that get to free agency. I'm actually shocked that the Texans allowed Jonathan Grenard, and I need to knock on a little wood that he's not signed prior to the start of free agency. That's a name to keep an eye on. If you want to know who the Commanders could be interested in and why, Marcus Davenport is a name to keep an eye on. I'm not interested in Marcus Davenport. Too many injury concerns throughout his career. It didn't go well for him. He just came off of a 1-year deal because these are the types of players that we'll be looking for, guys that need to prove themselves. He was a first-round pick, former first-round pick of the New Orleans Saints. Very productive when healthy. The problem was he wasn't healthy. And then he got to the end of that rookie deal. There were no long-term deals out there with his name on them. So he had to go the 1-year prove-it route. Took a chance in Minnesota, 1 year, $13 million. He didn't work out there, had a high ankle sprain, and pretty much didn't come back the rest of the season, which left a lot of Minnesota Vikings fans kind of scratching their head. Davenport is an interesting guy because he's excellent against the run. He's capable of getting to the quarterback. He's going to be a 1-year, deal kind of guy. I think he's going to be one of those players looking to prove himself in order to try to get his hands on a long-term deal. He'll be 28 in September. So I think he could be a one-year candidate, you know, and that might intrigue Washington with a former first-round talent. But I would stay as far away from Marcus Davenport as possible because I just don't like his injury history, and he seems to be one of those guys that I question sometimes how much he loves football, and I don't know if that's fair or not. I don't like questioning guys' heart or whether they love something or not. I don't know that unless they tell me that. I can't know that for sure. He just strikes me as one of those guys that's, hey, I'm not dying to get back out on the field once I get injured. If I'm injured, I'm injured, right? And those kind of guys you want to stay away. Remember, they said this defense isn't going to be for everybody. He doesn't strike me as one of those guys that this defense is going to be for when it's all said and done. And then lastly, a guy to consider, and I think this is the guy that we probably will sign. If you ask me who's the guy that I think we will sign the most, I'll tell you it's Dorrance Armstrong. And why do I feel like he's going to be one of the guys that we sign is because of his connections to both Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn. Dorrance Armstrong has played his entire NFL career in Dallas. Obviously, Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn have been in Dallas each of the last 3 seasons. So they're very well versed in the Dorrance Armstrong department. They know his game. They know his strengths, his weaknesses. They know what he's about. And at 27 years old in June, so still relatively young in that time frame that I've been talking about, Dorrance Armstrong is a guy that I think gets them probably a little excited. He was one of those guys on that defensive line that really made it go. And I think they feel like he's talented enough to bring along with them to Washington. And this is a guy that is knocking on the door of double-digit sacks, and they may think they can get him to break out here in Washington. And so I wouldn't be shocked to see him sign like a 3-year deal here in Washington as they start to bring some guys over from Dallas here to Washington to help them jumpstart this defense here with the Commanders. So those are the free agent targets at edge rusher, if you ask me, for the Washington Commanders. The 3 that I am intrigued by: Jadeveon Clowney on a 1-year deal, Darrell Taylor on a 3-year, multi-year deal. Same with Jonathan Grenard, who is in black because he is the guy that I want the most. That's the guy that I would target the most. And I'd be willing to spend a little bit of money for a guy like Jonathan Grenard as he's going into the prime of his career. Meanwhile, guys to consider, really translation, what I think the team may be considering heavily. Marcus Davenport, another 1-year deal candidate, which we assume Washington is going to be looking for guys who are interested in signing 1-year deals to help fill out the roster. And then Dorrance Armstrong, a guy that I think they would be willing to give a multi-year deal to coming over from Dallas. They know him very well, are very familiar with his game, and I think they feel like Dorrance Armstrong is a guy who is ready to take that leap. And so those are the edge rushers that I think Washington will target in free agency. What says you? Leave it down in the comment section. What do you think the Commanders are going to do in free agency this upcoming week? Because I think if you're going to go after edge rushers in particular, you're going to have to do that quickly. It's a premium position, as I mentioned already. Those go quickly. You're not going to be able to sit on your hands and wait till the dust settles and the smoke clears in free agency and then go pick out your edge rusher, unless you want one of the low level edge rushers, which they may go get one of those as well, because again, we need multiple edge rushers. So if you want a Jonathan Grenard, you got to act fast. That's probably a day 1 transaction. If you want Darrell Taylor, that's probably a day 2 transaction, but it may be a day 1 transaction. Sometimes you got to understand the market in which you're playing in, and you got to go straight to the target that you want. Don't mess around with some of these guys that you know you can't get. If you're not going to get a guy like Danielle Hunter, why even mess around with Danielle Hunter? Go straight to the source that you know you can get, which is Jonathan Grenard or Dorrance Armstrong or Darrell Taylor, and go get that deal done. Don't fool around with Danielle Hunter. Go to the guys that you know you have a realistic shot of getting. And so I think those are the players that you'll see coming off the board rather quickly in free agency. Hopefully Washington acts swiftly and gets their hands on some of these top edge rushers in this free agency crop. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. take command. Leave it down in the comment section. What are some of your favorite free agent targets at the edge rushing position? Do you agree with any of the ones I've said? And if not, why? And who do you think Washington should target at the edge rushing position? And if you don't mind, I'd love to know why. I'm a why guy, as you know. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care.
Louie T Network.